Hello everyone and welcome to my review for the film Ant-Man and the Wasp. So Ant-Man and the Wasp finds itself coming out just a few short months after the release of Avengers Infinity War, which is basically one of the biggest event films in all of cinematic history. And so kind of fittingly and also sort of ironically, this is one of Marvel's kind of smallest movies, both in scale and in stakes. But that doesn't mean it's bad, and it also doesn't mean it's too great either. So without further ado, let's get right into my review. Let's talk about the performances in this movie. For the most part, the performances were just okay in this film, except for two performances, which I'll get into. The rest of the side characters and supporting characters, including Hannah John-Kramer's villain character, Ghost, are just okay. I mean, I didn't think anyone did exceptional, nor did anyone give necessarily bad acting in this film. Overall, the supporting characters did their jobs, and not in any exceptional way, nor in any terrible way. But the two actors, I should say, who really did wow me in this film were Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. They are the kind of titular characters in this film, and they did really well in this movie. And I'm going to start by talking about Evangeline Lilly because in the first Ant-Man, I wasn't a big fan of her character or even her acting. I thought she did fine in the first Ant-Man, but in this movie she really comes into her own, and that's partly due to the kind of expanded role she has, the expanded kind of stuff that she has to work with as a character and as Wasp. She's definitely very kick-ass in this movie, guys. She has some of the best action sequences in the film, and I love her no-nonsense attitude in this movie, and I believe that Evangeline Lilly did have really good acting in this movie, especially when it came to the relationship she has with her mother. I think that she brought out some pretty good emotional scenes out of a movie that I didn't really expect any real emotion out of. And then on the other hand, we have Paul Rudd playing Ant-Man. He's kind of continuing the same kind of acting from Ant-Man and as well as, Captain America Civil War, what he had in that role in that movie. He's kind of, continuing that same kind of style of acting. And in fact, I would say that he's a little bit funnier in this film. And ultimately what works best in this movie, and is kind of really the centerpiece of this film, is that amazing charm and, more importantly, chemistry between Ant-Man and the Wasp, Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. Wasp's kind of no-nonsense attitude really works well with kind of the comedic, honestly, buffoonery of Paul Rudd's Ant-Man. The two go together so well, and I had a blast watching these two work together and work off of each other. They had great chemistry, great charm throughout the film, and they really live up to being this kind of amazing superhero pair. I really enjoyed the chemistry and charm between these two actors. In terms of plot, this movie doesn't have a lot to offer. In fact, I feel like this movie has too many plots. I think they're trying to cram in too much into one movie, and none of the plots really had any stakes. That said, while the plot was kind of bland and kind of meager for me, what I liked about this movie was its execution and style. I really feel like the kind of Ant-Man world that they've created in Ant-Man, kind of the first one, they set it up really well, but in the second movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, it really comes into its own and gets its own identity. I love the kind of frenzied zaniness this movie had. It was really energetic, really fast-paced. It was a great action comedy. I wouldn't say it was like really riveting or engaging, but I had fun with it, the kind of fun that you would have watching like a Saturday morning cartoon. And that's kind of how I would kind of describe this movie. It's kind of like watching a live-action Saturday morning cartoon. It's fun, it's kind of frenetic, it's kind of all over the place sometimes, but it's fast-paced, it's funny, and it's full of action. And there isn't a lot, as I said, in terms of plot, in terms of stakes of the plot. There aren't a lot of things going on in the plot that I felt were really important or were executed particularly well. In fact, I would say sometimes felt like there were 3 different plots going on at the same time, and none of them were being executed very well in terms of screenplay or script or dialogue. But what I did enjoy, as I said, was the energy this movie brought, and that's partially due to the great comedic aspects of this film. There's a lot of great visual comedy, as well as some kind of awkward, kind of RE comedy as well. I enjoyed both of the mixing of those two comedies that really worked. You have comedic actors at your disposal. You have people like Paul Rudd and Michael Pena who are playing that to comedic effect, and it works. And even when I felt like there wasn't a lot of substance in this movie in terms of plot, I didn't mind that much because there was so much great comedy and so much great action as well. I wouldn't say best action sequences of all time, but there are some pretty good action sequences in this film, especially with the Ant-Man and the Wasp technology that's always displayed in these films. While I didn't really mind how kind of meager and bland the plot of Ant-Man and the Wasp was, what annoyed me the most was Hannah John-Kramer's ghost character, because this was a villain that could have had more. I think it was a villain that had a lot more potential. From a visual standpoint, there was a lot of interesting things going on with her. I definitely enjoyed the visual aspect, but from a script, dialogue, kind of emotional value perspective, I felt like there was a lot more potential, but the movie just watered it down to make the film kind of more disposable and more fun. Which is understandable because it is the follow-up to Infinity War, and that was kind of their intent, but I feel like they lost a good opportunity to work with this character because there was a lot more to do here. And for me, Hannah John-Kramer wasn't really putting in a performance that was really worthy of this character, even with the kind of watered-down version. She was kind of one-note in this movie, I'll be honest. And I wish they had casted someone different. I wouldn't say she did terrible, but I think there could have been a better casting, and definitely more for this character was definitely called for, because she is a really interesting character, and there's a lot of different kind of emotional aspects that could have been explored in this film with that character. So overall, the biggest disappointment for me was actually the villain of this film. Overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp is probably one of Marvel's more forgettable films, and maybe even one of their worst films. There is fun to be had with this movie, and even though it's not very strong with script, screenplay, dialogue, or emotional value, there is fun to be had in the way that you watch a Saturday morning cartoon. It has a kind of zaniness to it, a frenzied, kind of fast-paced action comedy visual style that I really enjoyed. And the three words that I'd really use to describe this movie is charming, energetic, and full of great chemistry between its two main leads. And they did do those three things really, really well. So even though they didn't have the best plot with the most stakes and the best villain and all those things, the movie does succeed in incredible fashion with those three things. And honestly, for me, with these characters, that felt like it was enough to have some sort of enjoyment with. I mean, ideally there would have been everything, but I understand that the studio wanted kind of a more chilled out kind of sequel or follow-up to Infinity War, and keeping those intentions in mind, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp does succeed. Again, ideally there'd be everything, and it'd be just a phenomenal movie that had a great script, but it isn't that, and they focused more on those three things, and they did pretty well with that. And I think that overall you won't remember this movie that much, but I think it's a fun diversion. Quick 2 hours, beat the heat kind of film in the summer, go out in the theater, sit in an air-conditioned theater, and just enjoy the movie for what it is. It's like a live-action cartoon, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. Not the best movie in the world, definitely one of the kind of worst, Marvel movies, but I enjoyed it. It was kind of a quick, fun diversion, and I think most people are going to enjoy its charm, its chemistry, and Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly really do work well together in this film. So overall, I'm going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp a B. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video.